I wish I were in a position to auction opportunities to have lunch with the three speakers. I wish I could act as their agents. There's certainly, it seems to me, a great deal to talk to them about. We've got about 15 minutes for question time, and we'll follow the practice which is enshrined in Singapore of taking 3 questions first and then letting the speakers respond to those. So we're open, there are roving microphones, and looking, yes, one there. And one at the back, the lady at the back, and the gentleman at the back, please. So, sir, can we begin over there? And we'll have a second round, I think, with any luck at all.
Yeah, it was a very interesting presentation. My question is to Dr. Xia.
Could we have your name, please?
Yeah, I'm Dr. Kaushik. I'm from SPJCM, Singapore. My question is to Dr. Xia. Certainly what you have just showed us, it represents a vertical research and development of the healthcare industry. But there's always another dimension to it that represents the horizontal spread. Because in places in South Asia, the infant mortality rates and the maternal mortality rates are comparable to Africa. So how can Singapore and the diaspora in Singapore build up new ways to help removing this deficit?
Thank you. And
hello, my name is Jessie. I'm from the Singapore Tourism Board. My question is directed at Ayesha. So I think that any talk about smart cities almost always invites the issue of privacy. So where do you think the balance lies between our need to share information and our need to protect those personal information? And do you think any technology in the near future could be a solution to this problem?
And the third one?
Hi. I'm Ronojoy Sen. I'm with ISAS. I have a question for Ayesha. I sort of hate to bring up, old world issues regarding smart cities here, but in the Indian context, or in general the South Asian context, do you see sort of issues like land acquisition, outdated environmental laws or basic flouting of laws as hindrances to, cities? You mentioned Lavasa, and that's actually already has had several problems.
And we might begin with Ayesha then. Would you like to respond to both of those?
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll first respond to the privacy question, which is really important and keeps coming up again and again. With security cameras everywhere and with sensors picking up information about everything from what you do in the morning to where you go in the evening, it's a big question, and the tension is between convenience and security. So as a mother, if somebody gave me the choice of whether I'd like to always have security cameras that record everything that I do, I might say, well, not really. But if they said, well, we can also record where your child is at any given time, then I might say, okay, fine, I'll agree to it. And I think that the key over here is that people should be allowed to make these informed choices. And I had a long conversation with the people in Portugal that are building Planet Valley, and they said every city eventually, now please note that there is no smart city currently in the world. This is almost a utopian thing. Most cities already exist and they're retrofitted. But as citizens have digital profiles, we should be allowed to opt in to certain services. So if you look at Facebook, Facebook has generated a lot of controversy because by default they opt you in. So recently they allowed facial recognition to tag and recognize your photographs. And you actually had to go in and untag it, uncheck it. I don't want you to do this. And so what we need to push for is that while some of these things are good for us, we would like to have the option as citizens to choose. There is no technology at the moment, but I think this is not a very sophisticated technology. It just needs a database and a form. It's really a political will issue more than anything else.
And the land question?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a huge issue in South Asia. As I mentioned, Lavasa has already been stopped because of precisely this and the political corruption over there. So in South Asia, I think again, Lavasa is a little different because you're trying to build a city from scratch. I think the more interesting things in Pakistan and also in India would be what can you layer on top of existing infrastructures, and in that sense, how can you use information technology like mobile phones and connecting those and using those as instruments of data acquisition and data generation to better understand what citizens do. But I think when you begin to run into bureaucracy and governments, the whole process begins to stall. So a smart city is not only about land. Smart city is more about the information layer that you put on top of existing infrastructure or new infrastructure.
And on horizontal healthcare.
Yes, that's a very good question regarding healthcare. You raised a good issue for local reverse global. Some diseases like oncology, cancer is very popular, is common for all of countries. Some issue like infections, South Asia maybe more than West country. So that's very important for multinational companies. Many companies right now set up a research and development center in Singapore. Specifically, some of program for local Singapore diseases and for South Asia. And like A-Star, National University in Singapore, actively engaging with many companies are doing such kind of program for South Asia issues, and then trying to apply to global markets. So same thing we are doing here in Singapore and also in India and China, trying to solve local issues. At the same time, apply to global market.
We've got time for 2 more questions, and there was a gentleman here and a lady behind him. So can we have microphone here? Excuse me, sorry, the gentleman here at this table and the lady behind him at the next table.
Yeah, my name is Michael Pinto, and my question is addressed to Mr. Jain. And it's an extraordinarily interesting presentation. I was only wondering, is this really replicable? Is it scalable from the point of view of cost? Is that going to be an inhibiting factor if you want to do it on a wide scale in schools in India and Pakistan and elsewhere in South Asia? How will costs come in the way?
And the lady behind, could you take the microphone behind?
Hi, my name is Bharati Pandey and I teach at SMU. My question is to Siddharth. By blasting children with so much of creativity and by making school a place of so much of entertainment and constant stimulation, are we really preparing these kids for adulthood and for the drudgery and, you know, the routine of the working world? How do they survive in that environment of reality after such an exciting time at school?
Siddharth, both for you. Go ahead.
I think very challenging questions. These are questions that we are wrestling with every day. The first question is about cost. And I think I would like to put forward a point that I think before it becomes an issue of cost, I think we have to decide whether this is an issue where we have any choice. I believe that kids are already becoming disengaged with education as it exists. I believe that a lot of effort around the world is going into changing the way education happens. And we are meeting as much failure as we are meeting success. Whether or not we like it, our kids are exposed to a lot of media. My 7-year-old uses, like I said, 14, 15 different gadgets. She Googles everything I say. It's very hard. It's very hard to explain things to her and very hard to sort of contest with her. And I can imagine if there are 40 of her in one classroom and I'm the teacher, I would definitely run out of that place. I don't know if we have choice. So I think going forward, a lot of investment is required. I think if I look at it in yet another way, the issue of cost can be answered in one more way. If we look at the proportion of expenditure in most countries in education over other things, it's quite dismal. I think a whole lot more needs to be done as a concerted effort around the globe to make education better. Teachers are underpaid, schools are understaffed, there aren't enough facilities, there aren't enough books. These are issues that exist in school, not in places like India and Bangladesh, but in places like UK and USA. There have been major riots in UK recently when they've raised the fees. So this is a real issue. There isn't enough government spending. We are spending more money in, say, Afghanistan or in Iraq or a lot of other places than we are in the schools trying to fight for the hearts and the minds of the children. Does that sort of answer your question?
And did you wish to address the creativity?
Yes. I think the second question, again, is extremely challenging. Again, I think, first, let me say this. I don't think that everyday life is anywhere near as unimaginative or dreary as we describe. I feel that if my life was a little bit more boring, I would really, really have a lot of fun. I think we are faced with a lot of different kinds of challenges, with a lot of need to constantly filter information that is put in front of us. If you just sit in your living room and flip channels, you'll have hundreds of channels, and you literally not find anything often which you can engage with, which you can actually enjoy. And this is something that adults, these are questions adults are faced with. When you do a Google search, you find hundreds of links which aren't directly related to the topic that you are looking for, but that grab your attention and that hold your attention and that sort of take you away from what you're trying to accomplish. I think in the future, or even today, but more so in the future, it's going to be more important for children to learn how to deal with this overwhelming presentation of media. And since I don't know of any restrictive strategy for teaching constraint to children, I think overwhelming them may be one way that we might teach them how to rationalize the information that they come across.
Thank you. We're out of time. Lunch lies ahead. Please join with me in thanking an extraordinarily interesting panel for their contribution this morning. That was great.
Thank you, distinguished panel. May you please invite you to remain on stage as we humbly invite Professor Tan Tai-Yong on stage to present tokens of appreciation to our wonderful panel. Professor Tan, a big warm welcome, please. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. To the panel, we thank you once again for taking time from your schedules to join us here today. We'd like to thank Mrs. Ayesha Khanna with a big round of applause, please, and a token of our appreciation. Our moderator, Professor Robin Jeffrey. Thank you very much, sir. Dr. Xia Mingde and Mr. Siddharth Jain as well. We'll now pose for a group photo opportunity. And give them another big round of applause, please. Thank you very much, panel. Thank you, Professor Tan.